Jackie, we understand you spoke with the minister in charge of this today. What more did he say about why this process was suddenly halted?
Essentially, the minister wants to take more time to talk to more people moving forward on this. This has been a really charged issue. Huge misunderstanding from First Nations leaders have called this damaging to reconciliation and fear-mongering. I spoke to the minister today, and here is a little bit about what he has to say.
I worried greatly, and I think a number of First Nations leaders worried also, that misinformation was dividing people, pitting neighbor against neighbor, First Nations against non-First Nations. And that's not good for anybody. I think the people that were spreading that misinformation, and some of it came from political parties in the opposition, which is incredibly unfortunate, they have their own responsibility for that. My responsibility is to be able to have the conversation where we come together, where British Columbians are able to understand what's being proposed.
The minister says he spoke to more than 600 groups about the proposed amendments already, but the minister wasn't clear about what more needs to be done before this moves forward or when that will happen.
So what do First Nations leaders have to say about this process now stopping?
Well, I spoke to all three leaders that make up the BC First Nations Leadership Council, Regional Chief Terry Teegee, Cheryl Casimir of the Political Executive for the First Nations Summit, and Grand Chief Stuart Phillip of the Union of British Columbia Indian Chiefs. They were all disappointed by this decision, but it's understanding under these extreme circumstances and pressure the government and BC First Nations were facing. Grand Chief Phillip says he is still in support of the EB government and thinks there is still lots of work that can be done. From all the First Nations leadership, all seem to say that there is more education and awareness needed from the public in terms of First Nations rights and the United Nations declarations on the rights of Indigenous people. I also spoke to Cliff Atleo from Simon Fraser University about this surprise development, and here's some of what he has to say.
So I feel in some ways disappointed, even though I knew it wasn't going to be revolutionary. I think it was going to allow for some more tools for communities to have more decision making, which on some level would mark an improvement. But the public appetite for that obviously is not necessarily very good right now.
Atleo also points out that BC is the only province with legislation that aligns with UNDRIP, and it's telling how hard it has been for the province to implement some of that legislation, and this might require more fundamental shifts on the public's views on land management and the economy.
All right, well, thank you very much for this, Jackie. That's Jackie McKay from CBC Indigenous.